Hello everyone, it is time for another Palm of FCC. My name is Patrick. This is where I do 25 minutes of free code camp, hopefully every day, until I finish the entire course load, which is a lot, all the way through the coding interview prep and the machine learning stuff, which I'm pretty excited, but not going to worry about that. We got a long ways to go. So we should finish up CSS today and get into applied visual design. So let's go ahead and start the timer. Here we got the tomato timer. So we're going to start that. Let's get into it. Alright, so it says after you create a variable, you can assign it its color value or its value to other CSS properties by referencing the name you gave it. So here's how to create a variable. In case don't remember from yesterday. In fact, I didn't remember from yesterday. I had to look at it. So dash dash and then the variable name and then whatever attribute you want to put after it. So apply the penguin skin variable to the background property of penguin top, penguin bottom, right hand, and left hand classes. And this is how you do it. Use var parentheses and then your variable name. So background, we're going to change this to var dash dash penguin skin. And it should work. There we go. It's gray. Penguin bottom. We're just going to copy and paste this. Save some time. Right hand. Var penguin skin, and then left hand. Change it to var penguin skin. There we go. And now the penguin now has gray outline. This should pass. There we go. Alright, attach a fallback value to a CSS variable. When using your CSS variable as a CSS property value, you can attach a fallback value that your browser will revert to if the given variable is invalid. This fallback is not used to increase browser compatibility, and it will not work on Internet Explorer browsers. Rather, it is used so that the browser has a color to display if it cannot find your variable. Here's how to do it. So, same thing as putting the variable, but you put a comma and then what the fallback is, which will be black. Alright, so it looks like there's a problem with the variables supplied to the penguin top, penguin bottom classes. Rather than fix the typo, add a fallback value of black to the background property of penguin top and penguin bottom. So as you see, penguin is misspelled here. That's why it's not showing properly. So we're just going to add black in here. There we go. And we're going to do the same here. Black. There we go. Alright, we're going to run the tests. Okay, let's go to the next challenge. We got improved compatibility with browser fallbacks. When working with CSS, you will likely run into browser compatibility issues at some point. This is why it's important to provide browser fallbacks to avoid potential problems. When your browser parses the CSS of a web page, it ignores any properties that it doesn't recognize or support. For example, if you use a CSS variable to assign a background color on a site, Internet Explorer will ignore the background color because it does not support CSS variables. In that case, the browser will use whatever value it has for that property. If it can't find any other value set for that property, it will revert to the default value, which is typically not ideal. This means that if you do not, this means that if you do want to provide a browser fallback, it is easy as providing another more widely supported value immediately before your declaration. That way, an older browser will have something to fall back on, while a newer browser will just interpret whatever declaration comes later in the cascade. It looks like a variable is being set to the background color of red box. So var red color, okay. Let's improve our browser capability by adding another background declaration right before the existing declaration and set its value to red. So do we just do background red like that? What if we did green? Okay, so the variable's working. Okay. So that's pretty simple. You just do it twice. Seems redundant, but you know, that's the world of code. Not all browsers, not all software is going to read stuff the same. Let's go to the next challenge. Inherit CSS variables. When you create a variable, it is available to you to use inside the selector which you created. It is also available in any of that selector's descendants. This happens because CSS variables are inherited just like ordinary properties. To make use of inheritance, CSS variables are often defined in the elements. That's kind of weird. I wonder if they meant to say root element. It just says in is defined in the, and there's like this big space here and it says element. Alright, root is a pseudo-class selector that matches the root element of the document, usually the HTML element. By creating variables in root that will be available globally and be accessed from any other selector in the style sheet. Define a variable named penguin belly in the root and give it the value of pink. Then you can see that the variable is inherited and that all the child elements which use it get pink backgrounds. Okay, so we're going to do dash dash penguin belly. Oops. And then we're going to set it to pink. Alright, so I guess everything's getting this penguin. So penguin belly here, here, here. So everything turns pink. Okay. Alright, let's go to the next challenge. When you create variables in the root, they'll set the value of that variable for the whole page. You can then overwrite these variables by setting them again within a specific element. Change the value of penguin belly to white. Okay. And everything changes back to white. Right. Penguin class should reassign penguin belly variable to white. Didn't I change it to white? Penguin belly white. Oh, I didn't change it in the class. I changed it in the root. Okay. We'll change that back to pink. And then in the here, let's see. Change the value of penguin belly to white in the penguin class. So here's the penguin class. Okay. So we're going to add a different variable here. So this is basically overwriting a variable. Okay. Penguin belly white. There we go. So is penguin belly used? Okay, so it's still used after this. So it doesn't overwrite it for these right here because these aren't descendants, I guess, of this, which I assume. Okay, that makes sense, kinda. It's a little confusing with the inheritance and all that, but I guess it's just overriding in the penguin class. Okay. Alright, should pass now. There we go. And one more challenge in CSS probably. Use a media query to change a variable. So CSS variables can simplify the way you use media queries. For instance, when your screen is smaller or larger than your media query breakpoint, you can change the value of a variable, and then it'll apply its style to whatever is used. And the root selector of the media query, right here, change it so penguin size is redefined and given a value of 280 pixels. Also redefine penguin skin and give it a value of black. Then resize the preview to see a change in its action. Okay. So we're going to do penguin size, and it's going to be 280 pixels or 200 pixels. And we're going to do penguin skin. It's going to be black. So if we resize this window, you could see this change when it hits a certain threshold right there. So when it hits that media threshold, that media query, you see that the size of the penguin shrinks and penguin skin turns to black within the media query. Okay. So that is kind of a responsive CSS. Pretty cool. All right. Alright, we are done with basic CSS. So we'll be going to Visual Basics or something like that. What's next? Applied Visual Design. Okay. So create visual balance using the text align property. This section of the curriculum focuses on applied visual design. First group of challenges build on the given card layout. You show a number of core principles. Text is often a large part of web content. CSS has several options on how to align it with the text align property. Text align justify causes all lines of text to except the last line to meet the left and right edges of the box. Text align center centers the text. Text align right aligns the text, and text align left default, which is the default setting, left aligns the text. So pretty self-explanatory. Anybody that's ever used like a word processing program. Align the H4's tags text, which says Google, which is this right here, to the center, and then justify the paragraph tag, which contains the information about how Google was founded, which is this. And justify. Okay. So the H4, we're going to do text align, and we're going to center that. There we go. You see it centered. And then for the paragraph, we're going to use text align justify. And there you go. You see that first line kind of spreads out to justify it along the whole width. Let's run the test. Alright, next challenge. Adjust the width of an element using the width property. You can specify the width of an element using the width property in CSS. Values can be given in relative lengths such as EM, absolute lengths such as pixels, or as a percentage of its containing parent element. Here's an example that changes the width of an image to 220 pixels. Alright, add a width property to the entire card and set it to an absolute value of 240 pixels. Use the full card class to select the element. So right here, we're going to do width, and we're going to set it to 245 pixels. So it'll never get any bigger than that, or smaller, I would imagine. Right, run the test. Yep. Adjust the height of an element using the height property. You can specify the height of an element using the height property in CSS. Similar to the width property, here's an example that it changes the height. So we get height. Add a height property to the H4 tag and set it 25 pixels. Note, you may need to be at 100% zoom to pass this challenge. Height 25 pixels. Okay, as you can see, it kind of spread out this a little bit more. Yeah. Use the strong tag to make text bold. To make text bold, you can use the strong tag. This is often used to draw attention to text and symbolize that it is important. With the strong tag, the browser applies the CSS font weight of bold to the element. Wrap a strong tag around Stanford University text inside the P tag. Do not include the period. Okay. Right here, we're going to do strong and close it here. Strong. There we go. So just Stanford University becomes bold. Interesting that they jump back into HTML after teaching us CSS. Alright. Use the U tag to underline text. To underline text, you can use the U tag. This is often used to signify that a section of text is important or something to remember. The U tag, the browser applies the CSS of text decoration underline to the element. Wrap the U tag only around the text PhD students. Okay, go here. U tag, and it just after students. There we go. So PhD students is underlined. Alright, use the M tag to italicize text. To emphasize text, you can use the EM tag, which displays the text as italicized as the browser applies the CSS of font style italic to the element. So it's all interesting. You got font weight for bold, font decoration for underline, and font style for italic. All different CSS keywords. Wrap an M tag around the contents of the paragraph tag. Get emphasis. So the whole paragraph tag is going to be EM. Go. Awesome. All right, use the S tag to strike through text. Strike through text, which is when a horizontal line cuts across the characters, you can use the S tag. It shows that a section of text is no longer valid. With the S tag, browser applies the CSS of text decoration line through to the element. Wrap the S tag around Google inside the H4 tag, and then add the word alphabet beside it, which should not have strike through formatting. Alright, so Google, strike through that. I'm going to close it here, and then we're going to put alphabet. There we go. That should work. Alright, create a horizontal line using the HR element. You can use the HR tag to add a horizontal line across the width of its containing element. This can be used to define a change in topic or to visually separate groups of content. Add an HR tag underneath the H4, which contains the card title. Alright, so here's the H4. We're just going to add an HR right here. Yeah, you see the line right here. Get put in. Adjust the background color property of text. Instead of adjusting your overall background or color of the text to make the foreground easy readable, you can add a background color to the element holding the text you want to emphasize. This challenge uses RGBA instead of hex codes or normal RGB. So the A, which is the last number of the RGB, A is alpha, so it's like the opacity, transparency, however you want to say it. RGB values can range from 0 to 255. The alpha value can range from 1, which is fully opaque or solid, to 0, which is fully transparent or clear. RGBA is great to use in this case as it allows you to adjust the opacity. This means you don't have to completely block out the element. You'll use background color RGBA 454545.1 for this challenge. It produces a dark gray color that is nearly transparent given the low opacity value of 0.1. To make the text stand out more, adjust the background color, the H4 element, right here, to the RGBA value. So we're going to do background color, or RGBA, and we're going to do 45, 45, 45, and then 0.1. That makes it lighter. It says remove the height and add a padding of 10 pixels. So we're going to add padding 10 pixels all the way around, and there we go. Should pass. Oh, maybe not. Did it pass? I guess it passed. Sorry, my for some reason when I run these tests, I guess it uses too much memory and it kind of kills my recording software. So let's just refresh this here. Seems like I kind of got stuck on this one. Let's see if this will reload. Here, let me pause the timer till we get this working again. Okay, so looks like we got it back. Let's see if it kills the there we go. For some reason, like when the JavaScript runs in the browser and my recording software, they don't gel. So let's go to the next challenge. I noticed that when recording before, and I think my recording had stopped. It's actually not true, but the timer is running, so we're good. Just the size of a header versus a paragraph tag. The font size of header tags, H1 through H6, should generally be larger than the font size of paragraph tags. This makes it easier for the user to visually understand the layout and level of importance of everything on the page. Use the font size property to adjust the text size of an element. To make the headline significantly larger than the paragraph, change the font size of H4 to 27 pixels. Okay, so we're going to add a font size. 27 pixels. And there we go. It's a lot bigger. Of course, we could have also just changed this to an H2 or an H1, however we need. So let's run the test. There we go. Alright, add box shadow to a card-like element. Box shadow property applies one or more shadows to an element. Box shadow property takes values for offset X, which is how far to push the shadow horizontally from the element, offset Y, how far to push the shadow vertically from the element, a blur radius, a spread radius, and color in that order. Blur radius and spread radius values are optional. Multiple box shadows can be created using commas to separate properties of each box shadow element. Okay, so here you got box shadow, you got offset X, offset Y, blur radius, color. Okay, then you have comma, and then you have another box shadow here with a different color or a different opacity, I guess. Okay. The element now has an ID of thumbnail. With this selector, use the example CSS values above to place a box shadow on the card. So we're going to create a new one here. Let's see, what is thumbnail? Yeah, ID thumbnail. Okay. We're going to do thumbnail. And then we're just going to copy this right here. Paste. There you go. You can see this box shadow. So if I do undo, you can see the box shadow go away. And then paste it. And there you get the box shadow, which is a really cool effect. And gives it the impression that it is coming up off the page. Very nice effect there to add some depth to the page. Alright, this should pass. Alright, let's go to the next challenge. We're going to do decrease the opacity of an element. The opacity property in CSS used to adjust the opacity. Conversely, the transparency for an item. So this works like the alpha in RGBA. Value 1 is opaque. Value of 0.5 is half see-through. 0 is completely transparent. The value given will apply to an entire element, whether it's an image with some transparency or the foreground and background colors for a block of text. Set the opacity of the anchor tags using links class to select them. Alright, so here's a links class. So these are the links, these two right here. Let's see how it turns out. We're going to say opacity. And we're going to set it to 0.7. And there you go. You see they kind of got a little bit lighter. Alright. Use the text transform property to make text uppercase. The text transform property in CSS is used to change the appearance of text. It's a convenient way to make sure text on a web page appears consistently without having to change the actual content of HTML elements. The following table shows how the different text transform values change the example text transforming. So you got lowercase, uppercase, capitalized, which capitalizes every word, initial, which I think capitalizes the first, inherit, which inherits the parent, and then none, which is just the original text. Transform the text of H4 to uppercase using text transform. Okay. Text transform uppercase, and there we go. Alphabet automatically goes uppercase every letter. I'm gonna run the test. There we go. Let's go to the next challenge. Set the font size for multiple heading elements. The font size property is usually used to specify how large the text is in a given element. This rule can be used for multiple elements to create visual consistency of text on a page. In this challenge, you'll set the values for H1 through H6 tags to balance the heading sizes. Okay, so these are the sizes we're going to use. Okay. So we're going to have the H1 font size 68 pixels. Alright, so to save on time, copy this. It's H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Okay. A lot of extra space here. Let's put a space here. This is H2. This is going to be 52 pixels. Oops, it's H12, H2. This will be H3. Put a space in there. H3 is going to be 40 pixels. H4, 32 pixels. H5, it's gonna be 21 pixels. And H6, it's gonna be 14 pixels. There we go. Very nice. Up. Our timer is up. As you can see up here, it says buzz. Our tomato timer is up. So that is one palm of free code camp for today. Let's go ahead and run these tests, make sure it works. And there we go. So, oops, forgot to submit. Let's go back and look at the curriculum. Oops. Go here. Curriculum. See how far we got. So, basic CSS, basic HTML is done. We're now on the visual design. Quite a ways to go through this. My next 25 minutes probably take me, we'll probably be in here probably for a couple more palms before we get into applied accessibility. So I notice learn how Bezier curves work. Bezier curves are something I've heard of them before. I've seen them explained. I still don't understand them. So yeah, that was today's palm. If you happen to watch this, thank you for watching. Remember, this is an accountability thing for me, so I do this to keep me going. And yeah, I will see you all tomorrow.